All right, let's try this again. Take two. Um, so we're going to talk with a buddy of mine, Matt OG. We got a few things we want to talk about as far as constitutionality and where the country's at right at the moment. We've got well, there's a lot to talk about as far as is it constitutional, what's constitutional, what's not constitutional, what the founders kind of intended. Um, and we're going to talk a little bit about Antifa because I think a lot of people are confused about Antifa and what they actually, what Antifa actually is and isn't, right? Um, Antifa's people within the organization have labeled themselves a terrorist organization. Not every person that claims to be Antifa is a terrorist. I mean, hell, most of them are college kids, keyboard warriors that sat around their house playing Call of Duty most of their life. Also, though, what you need to know about them is most of them are pretty well educated. This brings up some interesting things that have happened in the last couple of days. They deface the Lincoln Memorial, but they bypass the Jefferson Memorial. Interesting. They defaced the Vietnam Memorial with graffiti, but has anybody really took time and looked at those the pictures of the Vietnam Memorial damage? I did, and it was it's an awakening thing. Okay, I watched, and I see it, and they've got these big orange clouds painted on it now. That's Agent Orange, right? So that's what they're trying to get that message across as Agent Orange. Now, the interesting portion of that is the government pays hundreds of $millions a year out to Agent Orange victims, but yet still Monsanto, before Bayer took them over, was getting billions of dollars a year in government subsidies, and they never had to answer not one day for the people they killed. 58,000 people died in Vietnam, and over 150,000 people have died from Agent Orange. And still no formal recognition from the federal government. Some of these things are very interesting, and it's interesting that they defaced the Lincoln Memorial. You know, Lincoln was a tyrant, whether people want to admit it or not. President Trump touts his name around a lot, but the truth is Lincoln was a tyrant. He actually had a plan, written plan, that showed that he wanted to load the freed slaves up on ships and send them back to Africa after the war. Smart people, informed people, I should say, know that. Most people won't know that. I've got attacked over the last couple of days about posting stuff about Thomas Jefferson because he was a slave owner. Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner, and he opposed slavery. Personally, he didn't know what to do with it, and he knew sometimes he knew could be called a hypocrite because he didn't know what to do. What I will say, though, is he never, in all of his writings and everything, he never tried to hide the fact that slaves built Monticello. He never denied that fact. Nobody ever denied the fact that he did that. And to this day, Monticello is the only structure in the United States, site, that's been labeled as a World Heritage Site. So I believe that in itself is an accomplishment that African Americans are to. You know, we need to educate everybody. But African Americans should celebrate that. That's part of U.S. history. Their input, yes, they were enslaved. That's wrong. But the problem is everybody goes, we don't owe you anything. And we don't really owe anybody anything. They're a mistake, the sins of our fathers, grandpa, whatever they are. But it's also what have they brought to the table throughout history in the United States? The first black people that came to the colonies on Mayflower, a lot of them, they know it, were Muslim. So Muslims have been here with black people ever since the beginning of our country, since it was an English colony. Second portion of that is we talk about what African Americans have brought to our country. The banjo, who likes, you know, it's part of Southern heritage and bluegrass and all that, banjo music, but banjos came from Africa. A lot of the foods we eat, gourds and certain foods and all we grow in our garden came from Africans when they came over. This is what we need to celebrate. They have helped shape our society to what it is, and we don't even know. Most people don't even know that those things came from them. This is what we need to talk about. I mean, it really disgusts me that every time there's a line, and then we have this line now of, if you don't support the cops, you automatically are a leftist. That's not true, because the leftist, it's not about being left or right. People have forgotten about Ruby Ridge and Waco, okay? Ruby Ridge, yes, when Ruby Ridge happened and Waco happened, Clinton was in office. But the Attorney General from Bush 41, was left over. Oh, guess who that was? That was no other than our current Attorney General, Bill Barr. He signed off on Ruby Ridge, had that investigation going, okay? Then the sniper that killed Vicki Weaver while holding her child, and I need to drill this into your head. The woman was shot in her face, standing on her front door, holding a child. She was shot in the face and killed and dropped dead in her own damn living room by an FBI sniper. Okay? Her 14-year-old son was shot in the back by a sniper. Okay? When Barr left office, Idaho indicted that shooter for murder one. Hey, Matt OG, let me check. I thought I'm doing it now. Okay, should be connected. Hey, buddy, let me finish this train of thought and then we'll talk. So Barr, when Idaho indicted the shooter, William Barr, after leaving office, defended the sniper pro bono and had the charges dismissed. He also was the initial person to sign off on Waco. Janet Reno took over Waco, but it would have never happened had Barr not signed it. Barr signed off on it over federal gun charges, okay? It was. So Barr is deep state. He will lock you in a cage for owning a bump stock that the president has banned illegally, and he'll have no problems doing it. People need to understand it's not about the left, about the right. It's the run amok federal government as a whole are our true enemies of the people. And right now, people are drawing lines, and that's what they want you to do, because if you're fighting amongst yourselves, you're not focusing on the true enemy, and the true enemy is a run amok government. Matt OG, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Pretty good. We're just chatting here and talking about the Constitution and a few other things. Now, Matt OG wants to talk a little bit about 3% too, because there's some way overboard crap with 3% symbol. This is 3% symbol, not a sign of racism. And most people don't even know what a 3%er is. And I'm going to let him explain some of that to you guys. You there, or did you lose connection?
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. I didn't know if you lost connection there.
No, I got a phone call. Yeah,
Okay.
we were talking about that earlier, man. It's and I said we need to talk. We need to discuss this, you and I, because well, when I was over at your place back in January, we were sitting by the fire, man. I thought, man, this guy right here, he's kind of like-minded with me. So
I appreciate it. So we were getting ready to talk about the 3% sign, right? The 3% sign. Go ahead. I mean, it's not a racist symbol as the left and different people all over have designated it, and most people don't even know what a 3%er is.
well, well, because they didn't pay attention in that part of their history class of the American Revolution, see, and it's disputed even. I mean, they're saying it was what 17% even, but basically the 3%, where the 3% of the population took up arms against the king, the redcoats, to gain our independence from them.
Well, part of it was, I mean, I think it was really 3% only supported leaving leaving the protection of
All right,
leaving
turn
the
this
protection.
down here. Okay, go ahead.
A lot of them only 3% of the populace supported leaving Great Britain because they were scared of what the unknown was. A lot of people felt, and there was a great line, and it actually came from some Patrick Henry writings in the movie The Patriot, when he said, "Why would I trade one tyrant 3,000 miles away for 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away?" A lot of people felt that way by allowing this huge government to take place, and that in the end became the Federalists versus the Anti-Federalists, right? The Sam Adams and Patrick Henrys and the Thomas Jeffersons were Anti-Federalists. They wanted no big central government. They wanted smaller, to each state have their own constitution, and they'd be self-governing entities. Of course, we know what happened. We wound up getting a run-amok government because now we've got this huge central government with over 200,000 federal laws, not to mention what each individual state law is. I mean, we now live in a country where you can be jailed in a federal prison for building a pond on your property because your property happens to border federal land. That is disgusting and ridiculous.
It's insane.
And I mean, that's what people, don't understand. So there's coming a time in this country, and I know this is a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, and they don't want to hear it. You're going to have to draw a line at some point in time and say, are you a Federalist? I mean, are you a loyalist or are you a patriot? Because if you stand on the side of supporting a run-amok government, you are technically a loyalist. A patriot is not. A patriot wants the government to be back to a constitutional form of government, not all this bull crap that's going on. Every president we can say has had libertarian moments. Obama did some cool stuff. I mean, on the libertarian, they were more libertarian minded, not many, grant you. And Trump has done a few things for deregulation, and we got that individual mandate on Medicare and all. He's done something, but it's not far enough. They go to a point, then they just stop, right? Where's the president that's going to repeal the Federal Firearms Act, right? Because all federal gun laws are racist in nature. We talked about this earlier too, Matt. I'd like to hear what you got to say about it.
About the laws being racist? The firearm?
Yeah, about the gun laws being racist.
Well, first of all, the Constitution was the Native American. What was it? 1960 when Native American 1963 was it when Native American was actually declared citizenship? It was by Carter.
Yeah, it was sometime in there, yes, sir.
So
Carter or I don't know if it's 63. I got to look that up, but it's an interesting topic. I mean, yeah, up until 50 years ago or so, 40, 50 years ago, Native Americans weren't even considered U.S. citizens. They were something else, and that's disappointing. It's disgusting, actually, that you know.
Well, and the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia, back in when the Second Amendment was written, it was males between the age of what 18 and 45, white males.
Yes, sir. It was, yeah. I mean, at the time, yeah. I mean, you know, at the time, because slavery was there. I mean, only white people could own, white men could own guns. Yeah, that all that changed, of course, with the 14th Amendment. So now everybody, all the other amendments, you know, are applicable to everybody, right? I mean, that's how that works. So the thing about the Constitution is it's one document. They put a lot of things in a document, but they did not. You unless you sit down and start digging into the founders' documents, like where did the First Amendment come from? Well, First Amendment came from the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. Now, that was written by Thomas Jefferson in 1777, 75. I think they adopted in 1777. If you actually read that, it'll open your eyes to what the true intention of religious freedom meant in the United States and the freedom of speech. Second thing, I've argued with a lot of people about, our founders would have never approved of a Muslim being in Congress and da da da. Well, I tell you where I'm gonna call bullshit on this. A, read the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. B, it's funny that everybody said that because the Quran that everybody uses, every Muslim that's been sworn in uses, is Thomas Jefferson's copy of the Quran, his personal copy of the Quran. So it's a very interesting topic, but you have to delve into it. And the problem is, what really ticks me off more than anything in this day and age, right? The power of every book that's ever been written, every piece of paper that is known to exist, is in the power of your hand on your phone. There's no excuse to not research things and find the answers, right? Instead of just taking crap. A lot of people, friends of mine, get ticked off at me because I fact check a lot of Thomas Jefferson quotes. I mean, they sound real good, but a lot of them are fake. A lot of them are, quotations that have been accredited to Jefferson that he didn't say. And
Well, just like the Federalist Papers, when they were, there's still dispute on, they disputed on who actually wrote some of them, some of the articles in the Federalist Papers. There's a lot of dispute over who actually wrote what.
Yeah, and there's an interesting book that I have. It's got the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers together, because most people don't ever get to read the Anti-Federalist papers, right?
I did.
I know there's a group, Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson was believed to have ghost wrote some of them. But there was these Anti-Federalists, and there's a book that has put all these together with the responses, because with the responses of the Anti-Federalists versus the Federalist paper. It's interesting, and people need to know that history, because there was a movement. There was a big movement to not adopt a constitution. Alexander Hamilton pushed hard for the Constitution, but he did it because he wanted.
Hold on a second. Hey, quiet. Go on. 1 sec. Go on.
But yes, Thomas Jefferson wanted
I got a dog that thinks that.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Good. Everybody got to have a good dog. The problem was
Knock it up.
Hamilton wanted the Federalists, wanted a big central government, because he knew the power that it could wield. And one of the first things that happened from a big central government was the whiskey tax. And they actually put an army together to go collect tax from people making whiskey. And they had a rebellion. That was in Washington's first year in office. People don't understand how, once the government was created, how far it went real quick, and that's why Jefferson started the Democratic Republican Party. And he started a second party. And then what really pushed it all over the edge was when John Adams took when Congress passed legislation written by Alexander Hamilton, and John Adams signed it into the law, the Alien and Sedition Act. And then Jefferson and Madison had to go back, and they actually wrote rebuttals. Ghost wrote them because nobody knew, because of George Washington was furious about those two papers when they came out, the Virginia and the Kentucky resolutions. When those two papers came out, George Washington was furious. If he'd have known who did it, he'd have had them locked up, because early on, Jefferson wrote in the Kentucky resolutions that they were talking about this, basically dissolving the Union at that time, because they knew where it was going, too much power. And so it's an interesting topic.
Well, they were drafted in 1798 and 1799.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they
Which was what, the Sedition Act, wasn't it?
Alien Sedition Act. It was alien. So you're talking about John Adams literally locked reporters up for saying bad things about it. Wonder where that sounds familiar with going on today, huh? Because if Trump could do it, he would. He would. That's the problem, right? We fail to learn from our history, and we keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again, and it never changes. But we're going to get on to some current events real quick here. I want to talk about, everybody's complaining that these rioters and these looters are, oh my God, they're breaking the law. Well, they are. They are breaking the law, and I'm not going. You'll never get another disagreement on it. But what I am going to tell you, folks, is this happens, and I've talked about it in other videos of mine. The founders, not the founders themselves per se, but the colonists originally were burning businesses that belonged to loyalists and Tories. They were looting, burning businesses down, burning fields, burning crops. Okay, this happens anytime a revolution starts, and I'm a firm believer that we are seeing the beginnings of the next American Revolution. People may say no.
Oh, for sure.
Even the news media is starting to label it as such, right? We are this close, folks. And the groups that have been talking about it for years are sitting there going, well, they didn't start it the way I want. They burned AutoZone. That ain't what I wanted it to do. Well, it's a seed, right? It's a seed, and that seed is the tree of liberty, like Jefferson talked about. And as that seed grows into a tree, it's got to be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants and business owners. I mean, people sacrificed their whole lives for the American Revolution. I mean, people sacrificed their business, their houses, and everything. Something like 15 people that signed the Declaration of Independence lost their homes and lost family members. Some of them were killed. It's I encourage everybody to study up on that history. So I got Matt O's to come and talk. He wanted to talk some today, so I'm gonna kind of give it to him for a little bit.
Well, I wanted to talk because I love to listen. I love to learn from. I mean, you know a lot about it, and even back, when the Redcoats and the Patriots, the Patriots went over into the villages of the Redcoats and destroyed their shops, tore them up, burned them down. That's where it all. I mean, that's what it started. It was they looted them. They took everything from them.
Exactly.
But there was an end goal. There was a purpose behind that. You see what I'm saying? And I think a lot of the disconnect of people like us that we're patriots and we believe in that, and we all know that there's a revolution coming. We're preparing for it. Gosh, I mean, preppers like us, I mean, I'm ready. I mean, I'm ready to do whatever. I mean, I can grab my keys, go to my vehicle, and I'm gone, But I think where people are having the issue is the ones that are like, well, they go in there and they steal the Nikes and the TVs, and then they go back and they like, well, like a few people said, how many of them actually know who George Floyd really was? If you were to say, why are you protesting? And they're like, free shit. And but I guess what we want to try to do is explain the difference between that, the revolutionary looting, like they did back in the Revolutionary War, and just lawless anarchy. Where do you draw that distinction at, Joe?
Well, I draw it at, yeah, there's bad actors in any movement, right? I mean, we look at, well, we look at American soldiers. I'm just going to bring this up. American soldiers in every war they've ever fought have committed some of the same acts on foreign soil. There's bad actors in any group. If the movement itself is righteous per se, there's always going to be some bad actors. Now, as this movement grows, and we're already seeing some of it, we are seeing some of the protesters and people stepping in the way and trying to stop people from looting and doing things because it's conflicting the movement. So I think as this movement grows, we will start seeing more and more of those people, the more righteous people, stand up and not allow it. And we're starting to see some of that now. I think a lot of calmer heads are prevailing in some of this. But you're always going to have bad actors, right? I mean, no matter what we do.
Right. So, and then it's like they're trying to say it's us right-wing Republican guys. There ain't nothing Republican about me, man. You know that.
Oh yeah.
And I'm trying to get gosh, man, if I could build the libertarian movement up, that would just be absolutely out of my own. I mean, people just, it's Republican or Democrat, and that's where. But
well, I think most people are libertarian in their thinking anyway. I mean, let's not forget every election. Okay, like 43% of the people in the 43% of the eligible voters, people that can vote in the United States, don't even vote every election. Didn't even vote last election. 43%. So if that 43% voted libertarian or I mean, let's say they vote libertarian. I mean, libertarians would win hands down. Why aren't they voting? Because they don't trust any of the candidates out there. They know it's all smoke and mirrors, right? It's all bullshit. That's why they're not voting. They're not voting because they don't trust any of them. And the problem is that they've suppressed the libertarian movement so hard by these archaic ballot access laws. To run a statewide candidate in the state of Virginia, you've got to have 40,000 signatures. That's ridiculous. I mean, how are we supposed to get that during these lockdown pandemics? 40,000 signatures from all the districts, combined. How do you get 40,000 signatures and still get your message out in an allotted period of time? You can't, and they've restricted third parties on the ballot, and that's the problem. That the problem is we need to push legislators to get rid of those ballot access laws and get people on the ballot. We've got a guy in Montana that runs a lot. He's a libertarian, Roger Roots. He holds the record for the amount of votes in a general election. I mean, he got like 20,000 votes, and that's a lot. And I mean, every year he gets a little more in his piece. He keeps Montana's ballot access because he always gets 10% in a statewide election. always.
Wasn't he the only libertarian actually that's had a seat that actually had a sitting member of Congress?
No, the only sitting member of Congress right now is Justin Amash. He switched parties. But Amash, you know, and people aren't paying that much attention to it because the Republicans just kind of spin him off because he's an anti-Trump guy, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Listen to Amash. Amash has actually written, right now, he's got legislation he's getting ready to put on the floor to get rid of protections for police where private citizens can't sue police for when they're treated badly.
That qualified immunity?
Yeah, he's trying to get rid of qualified immunity right now. Amash has got legislation already written. As soon as they get back in session, he's trying to get rid of qualified immunity. That's what needs to happen. Things like that. That's how, you know, that's how we get that going.
Does it say the looters are bad apples?
Yeah, well, some people, you know what I'm saying? That's what the whole point of it that Einer's trying to say here, the same people that say bad cops are a few bad apples, they're willing to say that looters are bad apples, right? So not every protester is a looter, is what that message is, right? Not every protester out there is a looter. So there's a few bad apples in those bunches, just like there's a few bad apple cops per se. You know, I mean, but the problem even is, and it's all starting to come out now with this case in Minneapolis, if you listen to any of the news today. So the questions being asked, they're charging these other officers that were standing there, but there's one officer that they're not charging because he did say, hey, roll the guy over on his side because he's having problems breathing. The question is being asked is, should he have used his police power to arrest that other cop? I say yes, he should have. But we're gonna see where that goes too. But you know, squeaky wheel gets the grease. If we get nothing else out of this, we may get some police reform. But I'm not seeing it because I'm seeing protesters in Richmond, Virginia, get shot at with tear gas for sitting there with their legs crossed holding up signs. I'm seeing a protester on video today or yesterday in handcuffs, and a cop spit on him 3 times while he was in handcuffs and hadn't hurt anybody. That's what I'm seeing. And until that behavior stops, you're going to have more and more and more of this. Now,
And they're not being held accountable for it.
No, they're not. So instead, you know, if I could do something, I'm going to tell you what I'd do. I would put buckets of tar and bags of feathers on the street corners and say, hey, go in there and grab them son of a bitches out of there and tar and feather their ass and run them out of town on a rail. That's the statement you need to make. Screw looting this store. Go in there, grab them politicians and grab them dirty, filthy cops that are the bad cops that we all know who they are. Pull them out, tar and feather them, and send their asses away like the colonists did.
Well, that's what we need to do. So that's what we need to do. So I wonder how many people actually know the timeline of the American Revolution. When do you think that the beginning of the American Revolution actually started?
I know it was like 1763 with the Stamp Act.
Well, it was 1754 with the French Indian War. And when the French, the cost of war, and it was to impose taxes on the American colonies to fund the war.
That was the Stamp Act, but it came after the war.
That was in 1765.
Yeah, okay, 1765. That came after the war. So they had the 7-year war, 7 years war, and then to pay the war debt off, the British imposed the Stamp Act. And the Stamp Act started it. That's where Patrick Henry basically, you know, said that if this be treason, let's make the most of it. And he made his speech, you know, Brutus, Caesar had his Brutus. That's an interesting topic, but, you know, that's when it really started. That's what started the movement. They weren't going to pay tax, right?
What happened during the rebellion of the Stamp Act? What happened? right? Riots.
Yeah,
They were burning the stamps,
exactly. And they were,
right?
yeah, I mean, but even if we get to the Boston Tea Party, right? The tea on that boat was owned by a private entity, even though it was a crony capitalist type of entity, it was still a private entity. And not to mention the deposits that the private shopkeepers had paid on that tea shipment. You know, that was how that business was done. They had to put a deposit for a percentage of the tea they bought. So all of those people lost their money when that tea got thrown in the harbor. But the second tea party that nobody ever talks about is the Annapolis Tea Party, where they burnt a boat in Annapolis Harbor to the waterline. That was the second.
That took 13 years though, from the Stamp Act to the Boston Tea Party. There was 13 years between that, wasn't there?
Yeah, something like 65, so 12, 13 years.
Yeah, because it was the Township Act. What was that? The Township
Townsend Act.
The Township Act.
Yeah, they had. So it was a lot of time frame, but so even after. Okay, so
I think that was 1767. I'm not sure, but
then after the American Revolution was over, and Cornwallis surrendered, and they put them on a boat there in Virginia, Fort Useless, I call it Fort Eustis. Then it still took years for them to even draft a constitution. I mean, we went like 5 years without a constitution after the end, and there was no anarchy. The country didn't. Oh my God! We didn't get. There were states had individual constitutions, so they governed, right? There was after the American Revolution, before the Constitution, and before the first president, it was like 4.5, 5 years there. Nobody. The country didn't burn. We had no central government, and the colonies did their thing, right? People don't know their history. I'm a little fuzzy on some of the dates, but I know the timeline. I just don't know exact all the dates.
you know a hell of a lot more than most people do, because Boston Massacre. Does that fit into the timeline there?
That was 1760.
1770.
It was like 1767, 66, somewhere in that area.
1770.
Was it? I knew it was close. I knew it was either way, but that was an interest. Let's just talk about
the Township Act was 1767, and then 1770 was the Boston Massacre. 1773 was the Boston Tea Party.
So the Boston Massacre, interesting enough. So this is where John Adams came to play, right? This is kind of where our 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th Amendments really come from.
John Adams was the defense attorney for the soldiers that were tried in the massacre.
Nobody, and he was adamant about it, and that's why we owe John Adams John Adams was not a great president. He did major mistakes as a president, but as a founder for the rule of law, he was a very good man. Okay. He did not believe that anybody in a free society should go without proper representation. And that's why he defended the British. And even though his cousin was the founder of the Sons of Liberty, Sam Adams, Sam respected John because John was a very principled individual, and he did what was right, and he did not believe that these people should stand trial and be lynched by the colonists for who they were without proper defense. And that's got to be appreciated and respected. I'm just like this. Now, here's the other thing. I hear people on the left and right calling for that cop that killed George Floyd to be lynched. That's not how our justice system works. If we do that kind of thing, we're condoning more of this type of behavior by letting them be judge, jury, and executioner as well.
Well, it deprives him of his due process.
Yeah, exactly. He has a right to due process, just like anybody else would have a right to due process, right? That's what we have to, we have to make sure we don't turn left by going, we don't go so far right, we actually make a left turn, right? So he has a right to due process whether we like it or not, right? So, that's what people, we can't lynch people. And that's what John Adams, they wanted to lynch him. His first cousin, Sam Adams, wanted to lynch those British soldiers, and he would not allow it. He would not. John Adams wouldn't allow it. He's like, no, they're going to get a fair trial just like you would or anybody else would.
And he won.
And he won it, yeah.
Yeah, he won it. He defended them, and he beat it.
Because they were egged on to do it. Apparently, if you really read that trial, it's a very interesting piece of our history that somebody hollered fire, and the soldiers misunderstood it, and they thought they were taking orders from their officer because some bad actor. Now here we go. See, this is the bad actor. Some bad actor in the background hollered fire to start the shooting. Just like a looter breaks a window and robs something, there's always bad actors in these things.
Well, and you say they were put up to it. I mean, look at George Soros and that whole. I mean, that theory of, the puppet masters behind the. Someone's got to be telling these guys to go out there and do this stuff. I mean, when they're setting up piles of bricks out in the middle of roads that weren't moved the day before.
My personal opinion on a pile of bricks and piles of bricks now may disagree with me on this portion. You ain't moving a 6,000-pound pallet of bricks around without somebody noticing where the hell they came.
I said the same thing.
My thing is the cops are involved with that, where they can come back and arrest the people that grabbed the bricks at a later date. They probably got cameras set up watching them fucking bricks, and they're going to catch who they can getting those bricks later on. They're just going to knock on their door and get a warrant and come arrest their asses.
Yeah, I've moved a lot of bricks, Joe.
Yeah, you ain't moving 6,000-pound pallet of bricks without somebody noticing. Who'd have delivered the son of bitches? Home Depot with a truck? Goddamn.
I said the same thing. I was like, that sounds a little fishy, man. Something.
It ain't like you're going to put these fucking things in the back of a Toyota and stop and dump them out real quick. It ain't a bundle of fucking newspapers.
Because I tell you what, the people
are nicely stacked bricks too, with bands and shit on them. I ain't buying the shit, dude. I ain't buying. The government, maybe not Fed, and I don't think the feds are, but the state, the cops are involved in that somehow, some way. I'm sorry.
They're involved in the whole damn thing.
Well, I believe that too, because what does it do? Who benefits the most from this? The cops, because what does it do? It furthers their power. Their power grows with this, right? Whenever comes of it, they get to get more fancy weapons. Oh, we didn't have enough shit last time these riots started. We need phase cannon arrays, or we need ultra subsonic sound devices to quash these people, whatever. They're going to get more fancy toys out of this shit because they're proving that we can't handle it.
Well, I agree that there was something behind that. That somebody had to let that go. I mean, because I tell you what, like you said, I mean, around here, if somebody was just dumping a pile of bricks off in the middle of the road, someone would say something about it.
In a city with fucking traffic cams and every goddamn thing, I mean, you ain't gonna tell me you don't know where the fuck that shit's coming from, dude. They can blow that shit up somebody else's ass. Some little Antifa. These fucking people, the Antifa guys get to the goddamn rally on a fucking city bus. Where are they fucking bringing these fucking bricks from? In their backpacks? Really? I mean, let's be honest, guys. Just saying, don't get stuck on stupid with shit.
Well, I mean,
not you, but other people that are saying, oh, these Antifa guys are putting these bricks out when they're riding city buses to get to the fucking rally.
Motherfuckers is stupid.
Yeah. He's like, what, Ron Farrell? What's his name? Ron Farrell?
Young Farrell.
Ron Farrell. You ever heard him? Young Farrell? You motherfuckers are stupid. Yeah.
But it's funny. I mean, because nobody thinks like that. I mean, it's ridiculous and funny at the same time. It's because people are going,
He's when I was telling you
So
that.
so
But yeah, I ain't
timeline.
seeing no pallets of bricks get locked. I ain't seeing pallets of bricks getting dropped off without anybody taking a notice to that.
You know, because that's the one thing that I thought.
So here's one for you, and I know you're going to get this, but for the two people watching here, um,
We had more.
when was the first constitutional convention?
The first, you're talking about 17. It was 2 years, 1774, I think. So,
Yeah.
yep,
In Philadelphia?
yep.
Mm-hmm.
All they could agree on is nothing.
Nothing. Well, who was it?
They sent the olive branch petition at the time to King George. They basically said, hey, we just want to, they sent a list of, they asked for a redress of grievances to the king at the time, and the king come back and said, yeah, fuck you, you ain't getting it.
And Georgia was the only one that wasn't represented.
Yes,
The only colony.
Georgia and South Carolina were the outliers because that's an interesting topic too, because in the second constitutional convention or second continental convention, when Jefferson drafted the initial Declaration of Independence, he abolished slavery, and Ben Franklin knew that it wouldn't go because Georgia and South Carolina were no way going to play without abolishing slavery. I mean, without keeping slavery in it. And, Franklin was real adamant on it. He said, we're not trying to do that here. So if it had been up to Jefferson, the first declaration would have abolished slavery altogether. Interesting topic. The second part is what most people don't know about Jefferson is that he actually helped draft the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizens for the French Revolution when he was in France. He kept it real quiet because Washington would have shit a brick open because of U.S. involvement. But, he actually did a lot with that. That's pretty interesting history. And I love it because I'm in Virginia, right? That Monticello is the only World History Site in the United States. The only World Heritage Site in the United States is Thomas Jefferson's home.
Thomas Jefferson's home?
Monticello is the only site on United States soil that's a World Heritage Site, just like Taj Mahal and the pyramids are World Heritage Sites. The only one in the United States is Thomas Jefferson's home. And that's an awesome thing because, there's also a statue of Thomas Jefferson in Paris. A big statue of Thomas Jefferson in Paris because of his involvement and how much the French really liked Jefferson and respected him. It's interesting.
Wasn't it 1775 that Patrick Henry was the one that he was trying to organize the militia?
Yeah, that's
when he did the speech of the Virginia militia, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was give me liberty or give me death. But he was talking about, it wasn't the Virginia militia. Patrick Henry was getting Virginia to officially join.
Well, because he knew that war was going to be imminent. He knew that war with Britain was going to be, and he
pushed for it. He was one of the original Sons of Liberty.
Right.
Patrick Henry was one of the original Sons of Liberty. So yeah, he wanted. He knew we had to have it, right?
He says, "Well, I don't know what the course others will take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death."
Yep. Right up the road. I'm talking from where I'm sitting right this minute. It's like 45 minutes away to his house, in Charlotte County. So his family had this tradition that they had a piece of whale ivory letter opener. And the way his family worked is whoever happened to be speaking at the moment held that letter opener in their hand. It was a family tradition. that is there in the glass case at his house, and that was what he was holding in his hand when he made that historic speech.
That's close to your home.
Yeah, it's like 45 miles from my. I mean, it's like 35. Actually, from my house, it's 35 miles. Next county over.
I wish when I was there, I wish I'd have known that. I would have wanted to see that.
Yeah, it's Patrick Henry's. It's on the river over there. I mean, it's heck. You'd have to go. If you ever get back down here, we'll go. It's a nice place. But then there's a second home. There's his second home. Thomas Jefferson's second home is actually on my cover photo with me and the wife. Is in Bedford, Virginia, Poplar Forest, and he loved that home. It was an octagon-shaped house. It's a beautiful home up there too. And Virginia, the history there is the history here is amazing, and it really disturbs me that people that call themselves patriots live here their whole life, and they don't go to these places, they don't study these places. I don't know. I get nostalgic, right? I mean, I get real nostalgic.
Well, it all started there. I mean, everything started right there. I mean,
I get nostalgic because I like walking in Patrick Henry's house, and I know this sounds corny, right? But I'm walking in the same footsteps on the same wood floor that he did. I'm smelling the same smells he smelled. I'm seeing the same walls he saw. To me, that's amazing because it's it's a reality. Everything we have to credit to these people, and we have to accept their faults. They were human beings too. We can't put them on pedestals to say they were less than human, right? They were humans. I mean, they made mistakes and they did things that that we may not have approved of. I mean, everybody's human. It's just like they made a mistake. What's the only mistake I've ever seen was in the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. Not the whole thing, the last sentence, the last piece of the last sentence should never have been on there. And that is without due process of law or whatever, where it says personal property may not be taken without process of law. See, it just needed to stop at the end of taking. That last sentence didn't even need to fucking be on there. The government's got no right to use eminent domain, civil asset forfeiture, or anything to take mine or your property, period.
Yeah, no.
End of story. The American Indians have learned that the hard way. Native American, they've learned it the hard way because the government gave them a bunch of land, called it a reservation, but every time they find oil, gold, coal, a dirt that they like, a rock that they like, they take it back from them.
Well, like the mineral,
I
call the mineral, right? Oh, it's ridiculous. Right? We could go into a whole. I mean,
oh yeah, we could be here for 9 hours talking about that shit.
Oh man, I mean,
even
Jesus,
even the water resource on reservations has been stolen from the Native Americans. It's disgusting. It's ridiculous, and I hope.
And it's the perfect example of socialism.
Exactly. Oh, we know that.
Failed socialism.
I would love to see thousands of Native Americans marching with these Black Lives Matter protesters in these cities and all, because they should be getting good and tired of the shit too. And I know in Montana, when I lived in Montana, there's not a whole lot of African Americans in Montana, but I've watched them I've watched white people in Montana commit a crime and get a $500 bond or a PR bond and walk out of jail, but they lock a Native American up for the same fucking crime and give him a $50,000 fucking bond. I've watched it happen. If you say you haven't seen it happen, you're a damn liar if you live out that way.
Well,
racism is racism. Just because it's red, not black, is worse or just as bad. Depends where you live, right?
Well, and that's the thing, and that's where everybody. See, that's where they pick out pieces of history that's convenient, but it's like everybody thinks Lincoln's some fucking hero because he freed the slaves. That guy no more gave a shit about the slaves than the man in the moon. Because back with Dakota 38, you know the Dakota 38 we
Yes, sir.
talked about earlier. The people they wanted the soldiers, they wanted to go through and just completely massacre everybody. They said kill them all, women, children. They didn't give a shit. They wanted to go. And what was it over? It was over
What are you talking
the
about?
Dakota 38 when they why the soldiers wanted to kill everybody. What was the?
How Abe Lincoln was going.
I know, but what was the reason for it?
How?
Over a cow. It was over a stolen cow. And the people wanted to massacre the whole tribe. We're going to go through and we're going to just kill every one of them sons of bitches, right? Well, Lincoln said no, because we don't want an insurrection. Go pick about
Exactly.
30 or 40 of them and make an example out of them, and the rest will fall in line. He says, I promise you, it'll work a lot better than going and killing them all, because you're going to have an uprising and we can't afford that. Trust me on this one, he says, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that's what it's always been about, right? And before we cut this off here in a minute, because we only got 2 people on here, we'll pick up another one. It's what you and I talked about earlier, right? It's about control. It's about power. All they want to do is maintain control by any way they possibly can. And they will use those cops to maintain their control over us. We are nothing more than tax slaves to them. And it's a shame, but it's the truth. I mean, we're tax slaves. We are that last week, or week before, I think it was last week, Trump's economic advisor said something like, we have lost the resource, the human resource available for producing products, like they were fucking cattle, right? I mean, that's what they think about us. He let it slip. It was like a Freudian slip, they call it. But that's what he really fucking meant, right? He meant that we are nothing but tax slaves, where our purpose is to provide them money so they can do what they want to.
One thing before we go.
Yes, sir.
Nathan Hale.
Yes, sir.
Hung without a trial.
Well, I mean, he wasn't the only
British,
one.
huh?
There was a bunch that we don't even know about. He was just one of the ones we heard about.
Shit, I mean, how many people actually know who the hell he even was?
Oh, I know. Well, we get down to that. We get down to, well, that shows the beginning of our justice system, even in its earliest days, that it was really corrupt and defunct, right?
But do you know what his last words were?
No, I don't recall.
My only regret is that I only have one life to lose from the country.
Big two. Now, I remember those words, but I couldn't put the 2 and 2 together.
Joe, I could talk this shit with you all day long, man.
I know.
Are you at work now? Are you?
Yeah, I'm at work, so unfortunately I got to cut it off. But we'll do another one. Now that we got it worked out and we know how to do it. But I'm gonna share this on YouTube as well.
Yeah, please do.
All right, Bob. Talk to you later.
What do we want to talk about next time?
We'll get together. We'll figure it out. Let's see what current events are, because shit's changing so much. We may be talking about the sinking of a Navy ship in the New York Harbor or something by looters. So who the hell knows?
Joe, let's keep this going, man.
Yes, sir. We'll do it at least once a week. I think it'll be fun.
I think so too. I got my this is my ribbon shirt for the Full Soldiers. My wife made. Yeah.
That's pretty nice.
Huh?
Well, it's like a man dress kind of.
Well, no. It's a shirt.
Well, I know, but it comes. Oh, okay. I got
Yeah, it only goes.
If you get her to make it longer, it can be like a battle kilt.
And it can go down to my ankles, and I can get her to put on a burqa.
You want it to come up above the knee, and you put a belt around it with your gun. I mean, see, I think it would be cool to have like a Scottish regiment, 3% regiment that everybody goes in dressed in kilts and shit. You know, I think that'd be pretty cool.
I do it. Hell
I
yeah.
know, that'd be pretty good. With little 3% symbols on their kilt, I think it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, my
All
friend.
right, bud. Talk to you later.
Yep. See ya.
See ya.